In 1981, the United States government evacuated an entire island, moved every single resident off it by helicopter and boat, and never let them permanently come back. Today, more than 40 years later, that island is still officially uninhabited. And yet, right now, there may be exactly one person living on it, completely alone, on an active volcano, by his own choice. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly who he is and why he's still there. Let's take a closer look. This is Pagan Island, a U.S. territory in the Northern Mariana Islands, roughly 200 miles north of Saipan, made up of two volcanoes joined by a strip of land barely 600 meters wide. On paper, it belongs to the United States exactly as much as Guam or Hawaii does. In practice, it has been treated for over 4 decades as a place nobody is supposed to actually live. Stay with me until the end, because what's happening on this island right now says something genuinely strange about how a country can simply give up on a piece of its own territory. Pagan Island had been inhabited, in one form or another, for centuries before 1981. A small Micronesian community living on the fertile land between its two volcanoes, in a village called Shomoshon, sustained by fishing, farming, and a relationship with an active volcanic landscape that, for generations, had mostly stayed calm enough to live alongside. That relationship changed on the morning of May 15th, 1981. A swarm of earthquakes had been building for weeks, along with new ground cracks and increasing gas emissions from the northern volcano. At 9:15 in the morning local time, following a loud sonic boom, the mountain erupted in a powerful Plinian column that sent an ash cloud more than 13 kilometers into the sky. Lava flows followed almost immediately. Ash and volcanic debris buried parts of the island more than 2 meters deep in the worst affected areas. Remarkably, none of the 53 or 54 residents on the island that day were seriously injured. But there was no question of staying. Every single person was evacuated to Saipan in the days that followed, expecting, like most evacuees after a natural disaster, that this would be temporary, that once the volcano settled down, they would be allowed to go home. They never were. In the years after the eruption, flooding and debris flows finished what the eruption itself had started, largely destroying what remained of Shomoshon village. And the government of the Northern Mariana Islands made a decision that, more than 40 years later, has never fully been reversed. Pagan Island would remain officially uninhabited. What happened next is a story less about volcanic geology and more about what it actually means for a government to decide a piece of its own country simply isn't worth resettling. A decision that at least one person has spent years quietly refusing to accept. To understand why nobody simply moved back to Pagan once the immediate danger passed, you have to understand exactly how isolated this island actually is. Pagan sits more than 300 kilometers north of Saipan, the nearest significant population center, and there is no regular commercial transportation to reach it. No scheduled ferry, no commercial flights, no consistent way in or out at all. The island itself offers little in the way of welcome. Both volcanoes remain geologically active, with the northern peak periodically emitting steam, and on occasion, more than that. A further eruption occurred as recently as 2010. The terrain is rugged, soil cover across much of the island is thin and volcanic, and reliable freshwater and rainfall have historically been inconsistent enough that government assessments have repeatedly described the island as, in official terms, generally unsuitable for permanent habitation. This is precisely the combination that has kept Pagan in a strange legal and practical limbo for over 4 decades. Not so dangerous that visiting is prohibited outright, but isolated and unsupported enough that nobody in government has ever been willing to fund the infrastructure, power, water systems, medical access, reliable transportation that permanently resettling a community there would require. And yet, this is exactly the environment that at least one person has chosen to live in anyway, for extended stretches, entirely alone. Understanding what makes that possible means first understanding what it would actually cost anyone to try to build a life here today, which is exactly where we're headed next. Here is the strange economic reality of Pagan Island. In the most literal sense, there is no economy here at all. No jobs, no stores, no currency changing hands in any conventional way, because there is effectively nobody permanently present to trade with. For someone attempting to live on Pagan today, the entire concept of income and cost of living, as most people understand it, simply does not apply. What replaces it is a kind of economy of self-sufficiency that has almost no modern equivalent. Anyone living on Pagan for an extended period has to provide their own food through fishing, foraging, or small-scale farming on volcanic soil that previous residents managed to cultivate for generations. There is no store to buy supplies from, no way to simply order what's missing. Every tool, every piece of equipment has to be brought in advance, because there is no going back for anything forgotten. There is a cost here, but it isn't measured in a paycheck or a grocery bill. It's measured in the years of accumulated skill required to feed and shelter yourself entirely from what an isolated volcanic island provides. Skills that most people in the modern world have never had reason to develop, and that make the difference on Pagan between a self-sufficient life and a genuinely dangerous one. Which raises an obvious question. If there's no economy, no income, and no support system here at all, what is actually drawing people back to an island the government itself abandoned? The answer starts with the handful of people who've made this exact choice, and it's not what you'd expect. Over the decades since 1981, a small number of former residents and their descendants have made the journey back to Pagan, some for weeks, some for months, occasionally for periods stretching over a year, living without electricity, without internet, and without regular contact with anyone outside the island. At various points, media expeditions, including one documented by the travel channel Yes Theory, have traveled the difficult route to Pagan specifically to find and document a man reportedly living there essentially alone, sustaining himself entirely from what the island provides. A typical day for someone living this way on Pagan bears almost no resemblance to daily life anywhere most viewers of this video have ever experienced. Mornings are built around securing food for that day, not tomorrow, checking fishing lines, tending whatever crops the volcanic soil supports, gathering what the jungle and shoreline provide. There is no refrigeration in any conventional sense, no way to stockpile perishables for more than a short stretch, which means daily life here runs on a rhythm dictated entirely by what the island offers each morning, not by any calendar or schedule. What makes this particularly striking is the complete absence of the safety net most people, even in genuinely remote places, still have some access to. No phone signal for most of the island. No way to call for help if an injury or sudden illness occurs. No neighbor to check in with, in the way even Jarbage's 20 residents can rely on each other. This is self-sufficiency without any backup plan at all. It's worth asking why anyone would choose that when literally every modern convenience is one boat ride away in Saipan. The answer has less to do with survival skill and more to do with what this island represents to the people whose families lived here before 1981, which is a story that ties directly into what actually still functions economically on Pagan today. There is no easy way to reach Pagan Island, and in a very real sense, that difficulty is the entire reason the island has remained unresettled for as long as it has. There is no commercial airport, no regular ferry service, no scheduled transportation of any kind connecting Pagan to Saipan or anywhere else. Reaching the island generally requires chartering a boat for a journey of roughly 200 miles across open Pacific water, an expensive, weather-dependent undertaking with no guarantee of a safe landing once you arrive, since Pagan has no formal harbor or dock infrastructure. Occasional government or research vessels make the trip for official purposes, and it is sometimes possible to arrange passage aboard one of these. But there is no standing schedule anyone can simply plan around. Once you're on the island, there's no infrastructure waiting for you either. No roads in the conventional sense, no buildings maintained for visitors, nothing beyond what previous travelers or long-term residents have built and left behind. Anyone traveling to Pagan is, in the most literal sense, on their own from the moment the boat departs until the moment it returns, however many weeks or months later that may be. This is precisely the barrier that has kept Pagan from either being fully resettled or fully forgotten. Difficult enough to reach that it has never attracted the kind of casual visitors that erode a place's isolation over time, but not so impossible that the small number of people determined enough to make the trip have ever been entirely stopped from trying. The man documented living alone on Pagan Island for extended stretches is not simply someone passing through, or a researcher on a temporary assignment, or a descendant making a brief pilgrimage back to family land. Accounts from expeditions that have reached the island, including one organized by the travel documentary channel Yes Theory, which traveled for days specifically to find him, describe a resident who has chosen this island as, in the fullest sense, his actual home. No internet, no money in any conventional sense, no regular contact with civilization, and, for long stretches, No other human being on the island at all. What makes this more than simply an extreme survival story is the reason behind it. This is someone with a direct connection to the pre-1981 community. Someone for whom Pagan was never abandoned territory to be conquered or explored, but land that belonged to his family before a volcano and a government decision took it away. Living there, alone, without support, isn't a stunt. It is, as closely as one person can manage it, an act of simply refusing to accept that the island stopped being anyone's home in 1981. This is the actual answer to the question this video opened with. The reason at least one person is living right now completely alone on an active US volcano with no infrastructure and no safety net is not thrill-seeking. It's the same reason people have quietly returned to Pagan for over 40 years despite every incentive not to. Because an eruption and an evacuation order, however official, were never quite enough to make this place stop being home. More than 4 decades after the United States government moved every resident off this island, the island itself has never been fully empty. Not because anyone has managed it, and not because anyone has been allowed to properly resettle it, but because at least one person has consistently refused to let it become just another uninhabited dot on a map. There's a particular kind of stubbornness in choosing to live entirely alone on an island your own government has decided isn't worth resettling. No infrastructure, no support, no guarantee the volcano beneath your feet won't erupt again exactly as it did in 1981. And yet, more than 40 years later, Pagan has never quite managed to become the empty, uninhabited territory it is on paper. Someone has always found a way back. Someone always will. Maybe that's the real lesson an island like Pagan has to offer, that a place doesn't actually stop being someone's home just because the paperwork says it should. If you find meaning in these forgotten coordinates, consider subscribing to the map. Together, we'll keep rescuing these places from the silence of history.